Good evening, friends. My name is Annie Wilson. I am your programming supervisor for the First Ontario Performing Arts Centre. Welcome to episode 31 of Niagara Performs. Whether you're joining us on Facebook or on our YouTube page, or if you're joining the rebroadcast on Your TV Niagara, it's great to have you here. Niagara Performs is our online concert and event series, and we've been hosting this since April of this year. It's been a really great way for us to showcase some of our incredible creative community here in Niagara. And tonight we are joined by a super creative and talented woman, Lacie Williamson of LVW Creative Barracks. Lacie is a multi-disciplinary artist and arts educator. Here she is. Hi, Lacie.
Hello.
Let me tell everybody a little bit more about you. Lacie is a multidisciplinary artist and arts educator, and she owns and operates LVW Creative Barracks, an art studio and gallery created as a home for all creatives. And since quarantine started in March, she shifted her programming to an online platform paired with monthly subscription boxes for ages 3 and up for tots, kids and teens and adults. They look really fun. She's a really cool gal. I'm happy to welcome her to the show this evening. Hi, Lacie.
Hi, Annie. Thank you.
You're welcome. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I've got my scissors and my tape and my paper and my supplies, and I'm all ready to be guided through a craft with you.
Oh my gosh, this is so cool. So we're going to start some things off really slowly and do some introductions and some basic stuff. And then I'm all about imagination. So it's just, we're going to see what we can come up with in terms of what we can do with our weaving once it's turned into something woven.
Wonderful. Okay, well, I'm going to leave you to it, and I will see you at the end. Thank you.
See ya. Okay, everybody. So we want to make sure that we've got some tools with us. Since everyone's working at home, not everyone has the same type of art supplies that you might have in an art store or an art studio. So I thought, why not do something with paper? So all you really need is some boring blank pieces of paper. If you have some colored paper or magazines, newsprint, wrapping paper, you can totally use that too, as long as it's flexible, just like this stuff, okay? And I'm using boring white paper because if you have some very basic tools for coloring, whether it's markers, pencil, crayons, or crayons, you can just use those things to turn these boring pieces of paper into something a little bit more, more fun. Okay, so this is just a coloring page. So you could even take one of these coloring pages and make some art with your old coloring pages if you don't mind cutting them up. Okay, so I'll show you what I'm going to do with that later. But first, I thought we'd start with something really basic. Maybe you don't know what weaving is. Weaving is moving small pieces in and out of each other to bind them together. So I have 3 very short, very small pieces of paper. Hopefully you can see the difference in colors. That green and yellow are very similar, but it won't matter too much. So if you have any tape or glue or even a stapler, this will help you sort of secure these down to our first strip. Because what we're going to do, I'm going to just split these up like this. Okay, so I have 3 very small pieces of paper. I'm just going to hold them like this. Okay, and you can do this on a table. The only reason I'm doing this like this is so you can see a little bit easier. Once we get onto some bigger projects, you're going to see what I'm doing on the table. So I'm going to take a new piece of paper and notice how it's going the opposite direction of my first 3 pieces. Okay, and actually I'm going to use pink because it's very different from yellow and green. Okay, so what I want to do is take this pink piece of paper and put it behind this piece of paper, in front of the pink piece of paper, and behind the yellow piece, which doesn't look like much when it's just one piece. If I were to let this go, it would fall apart. It would just be confetti. But what we're going to do is we're going to move this down a little. So you want to make sure they're evenly spaced. This way doing it on the table is a little bit easier. Okay. So now we've got the 3 pieces. And I'm going to weave a new piece in. But remember when we did this pink piece of paper, I put the pink piece behind my yellow and behind my green and in front of my pink. You can see it. I'm going to do the opposite with this piece. I'm going to put it behind the pink, in front of the yellow, and in front of the green. And now that starts to lock things up a little. See, I can let go and those pieces of paper are still in their place. So I'm going to carefully turn it upside down, try not to lose any pieces. And we're going to do one more weave. Okay? So, what do we have? We're going to need some green. So I'm going to take that green piece. I'm going to put it in front of the yellow, behind the pink, and in front of the green. And then you can squish all the little pieces of paper together to make them nice and tight. And it's almost like you've created a new piece of paper. Okay? Now what you would do, if you wanted to make it a little bit more secure, you could use some tape or glue and just glue these little flappy bits together. Okay? And that would secure them. All right? So I'm going to just take a second and I'm just going to glue this little bit together really quickly. And I'm actually just going to use some tape. So I'm just folding the tape over on one side. Now, you might be thinking, this is a very small square. I'm not going to be able to do anything with a very small square. But you can do some things with a very small square to demonstrate what you could do with a very big square. And I'm going to show you what making a very big square will look like in just a moment. I'm just taping everything together. We were doing the basic stuff first. Now, can you guys think of some things in your house that are woven? I bet you're touching something that's woven right now. Do you know what it is? Your hair can be woven. That's what braiding is, right? Or you could do your clothing. All of those little threads are woven in and out of each other. Sometimes a rope, they weave ropes, depending on the style of rope. And so I'm just using all of the tape to just tape these little flappy bits together, okay? Now, the cool thing, if you read any of the promotion stuff for this little activity, was I suggested if you wanted to do something a little extra fun and a little extra interesting, have a look for some other things around your house that are flat and flexible that we could use to weave things together. You might have a basket at home. Your basket is probably woven, but it might be made of a natural material as opposed to paper. It wouldn't be a very strong basket if it was made of just paper. You could totally make a basket out of paper, but it might only hold other paper things. Okay, so here's just a little example of that weave. Now, if you did this over and over and over again with much longer pieces, you know what's going to happen? You're going to get a bigger square. Okay, so let's see. I've got a long blue strip of paper. I have a white strip of paper. Okay, and I have another blue strip of paper. Now, if I were to weave all the way down to the end of the white strip, that would be a very long area. But because I only have the 3 strips here, that means my weave is only going to be this wide here and this long. Okay. So sometimes when you're making things, you got to plan it out. You got to figure out what you want to make. Some things that I like to make. This is a very simple weave. And you can use this if you wanted to make like a 3D birthday card or a card of some kind. So I'm going to use 2 pieces of paper just because these 2 pieces of paper are different colors, so you'll be able to see what they look like when I fold them. So I'm going to make an L Okay, I'm just going to make an L. And right there, where they're touching, I want to attach that with a little tiny bit of tape, a little bit of glue, or a staple. Okay, so go ahead, take a little bit of tape, a little bit of glue. If you're using white glue, it might take a little bit of time to dry, but you'll still be able to make this next little thing. Okay, so I just made my little L. Now, see how it's flappy if you only use one piece of tape? I'm going to fold it back over. I'm going to put a second piece of tape there, and I'll show you that it won't be flat. There. Now it can't flap. So from here, notice that we've got this line. Okay, we're going to take that white piece of paper and fold it right over the line. Now we have a new line, but it's the blue line, right? So we're going to fold that piece of paper over that blue line. What do you think we're going to do next? That white piece, right? So that white piece, we're going to fold over. And notice I'm folding back over top of the same square. I'm not folding in different directions, just over the same square over and over. Watch. I'm going to repeat this till I run out of one piece of paper or the other. They're about the same length. But I'm going to go over and over and over and over. It's very repetitive. Back and forth and back and forth. What do you think I'm making? Can you imagine what I'm making? Maybe you peeked. Maybe you know what's happening right now. What's happening is that we're actually weaving paper, just two pieces. It's kind of like braiding. Okay, there you go. And see, I've got this little end here. It's a little bit hard for me to tape that together, but you can tape it. But look, we've created this springy piece of paper. Now, you can take this springy piece of paper and do all sorts of things with it. If you wanted to, you could make this arms on a robot, if you were making a robot sculpture. If you were using it, like I said, for a card, all we would do with the card is make a beautiful folded piece of paper. It could be a basic piece of paper. It could be a thicker piece of paper. Thick is nice for a card. So I'm just going to take this like this. Okay, I'm going to make a card. Now I'm using flimsy paper, so I'm going to fold it twice so it's double thick. Okay, whoops. There, so I've got double thick. Now I'm going to attach my spring right into the middle of my card. So it pokes out. It pokes out just like this. Boing. Okay, and then we can come up with a simple shape, or let's see. Maybe it could be a card for your teacher that you haven't seen in a long time coming up. So I'm gonna just draw an apple really quickly. Okay. Let's see here. So we've got this nice little drawing board here. And for an apple, it's just two C's touching one another. Okay, and you can color it in if you like. I don't know where the rumor came from that teachers like apples, but I think it's a good thing to like. Maybe it's because school comes back during apple season. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Okay, so my apple needs something a little bit more exciting. It needs, how about a little leaf? Let me do a little leaf. Okay, so we've got this super cute, very simple apple. Okay, now the reason I did it really simple is because I want to save some time for cutting it out, because we got to cut this cool thing out. So if you want to do something really elaborate, really crazy, you have someone that likes unicorns and you want to make them a special birthday unicorn card, well, you take some time to draw a unicorn that's super full of rainbow colors and full of detail, and take a lot of time to cut this out, okay? And do a great job on it. But this is just practice. So if you want to do something super simple like a happy face or a poo emoji, that's totally fine with me. You just want to do it nice and simple and then just cut it out. Okay, so grab a pair of scissors. If you're really little, ask a parent if you want, or make sure you have some safety scissors. I'm just going to cut it out really quickly. Go. Always keep your fingers away from this. So during this whole quarantine, I've been trying to find ways to keep all my creative friends busy because I'm normally teaching different art classes to different people of different ages, but I can't have friends come to the studio right now. So I've been coming up with all sorts of ways for you guys to get creative at home without having to have a whole art studio of supplies, okay? One of my favorite things to do is just draw, make some drawings, make some homemade cards. You have all this time now. You can make your own Halloween costume if you really want to. And you could probably make it out of paper if you use strong enough paper. Okay, so here's my little apple for my teacher card. Where did I put my card? Here's my card. So I'm going to take a small piece of tape. Now, I would suggest using a glue stick for this step if you want to make a good card that'll hold together. I find this tape isn't the perfect thing to make a card, but it's a good piece of something sticky to use as a good example. Okay, so we've got this big sticky arty piece. Now I'm going to put another piece of tape on the very end of my spring. So I'm using tape loops. I'm just doing loop to loop, just like that. I'm going to stick it right to the end of my apple card. And then I'm going to get my apple. Okay. And I'm going to stick that tape loop right onto the back of my apple and give it a good squish. Okay. And then when I let go, boing, see? Got a pretty cool three-dimensional card. So like if you wanted to make a card that said, congratulations. I don't know why you're congratulating someone, but you are. Congratulations. Wouldn't it be cool if it just like bounced off the page with some stars and some sparkles and stuff? You have the power to do that now. Okay. So look at that. One way where we can make weaving something that's very simple and flat into a three-dimensional fun project. And like I said, you can use this. This is a perfect shape for flexy, bendy arms if you're making sculptures, if you're making robots, if you're making puppets even. Paper puppets love bendy arms and legs like that. Okay. All right. So remember how I said if we worked with larger pieces, we'd be able to make larger weaves, right? So if these cute little pieces of paper were longer, I could make one that takes up this whole screen, right? Right. Now, what could we use a weaved piece of paper? You could even use fabric, okay? What could we use something like this for? Maybe we could use it for a placemat. Now, this project is really fun. Some of you out there might be into Minecraft. I know I have so many young friends that are really into Minecraft. And the whole thing about Minecraft is that everything in it is pixelated and everything is just squares, right? So imagine you could make an entire Minecraft pig or Minecraft creeper or any of your favorite Minecraft things by using this weaved grid. Okay, you would just want to use different striped pieces of paper. Okay, and in this case, all I did was take boring blank pieces of paper. Okay, and I just colored them in with a marker. Now, the reason I got into weaving was I spent an entire month in 2019 teaching children in a school, one specific school. I did 460 students. So we had made sure that every student and every teacher participated in the project. And the project was about educating people on the importance of the health of water. Because I don't know if you know this, but water is really, really important, especially where we live. Niagara is sandwiched between Lake Ontario what we want to make sure of is that we're doing the best that we can to take care of the water. And the best thing that we can do is remember every day to do our best. Sometimes that means making sure you turn the taps off at home while you're brushing your teeth, or you use less water when you're washing the dishes, or you don't use as much water when you're washing your car. You want to make sure that those things you're reserving the water. Now, you also want to make sure that you're not making the water polluted. So there's all sorts of things. People are always worried about straws and turtles, and that is very important. But there's other things that are more important to be aware of. Little microplastics or micro garbage, they call them. Things like your pop bottle tab or your pop lid, cigarette butts, stuff like that. Those are the little things that little creatures like to eat, or they plug up really important little places where all these little animals like to live. If they're not healthy, we're eventually not going to be healthy. So what I tried to do was create a project with the help of kids that would be a daily reminder to them at school that water is very important. And what we did was we started with just boring little pieces of paper, just boring pieces of paper. And we used watercolor paint, and we just painted them in, okay? Now, if you don't have watercolor paint at home, there's a couple really fun things that you can do that are really simple. Most Crayola markers, okay, or water-based markers, coloring markers, even highlighters and stuff like that, they're water-based, which means you could put a bunch of dots or scribbles on this piece of paper or a very large piece of paper. And what could happen is, because the ink inside of these markers is water-based, when you add water to the paper, you don't want to soak the paper, just little drops. That water will wake up and catch the ink from your marker and spread it out, almost like little marker fireworks. You're probably thinking I'm crazy, but trust me, it does kind of look like fireworks, especially if you do little dots or little rings, because the water wants to naturally move out and spread out and find a point where all of it is laying flat equally, okay? It's a pretty crazy thing to think about. That's just what water does. It lays flat. So what we wanted to do was, let's create a map and let's remind ourselves that we're all connected and we're all responsible for the same environment, because we all live in the environment one way or another, no matter where we live. And our environment is connected to other environments, okay? So maybe you think, well, far, far away in a different country, my environment doesn't impact their environment. Well, it does. It really does, because we share the same water and we share the same earth and we share the same air. So all of that stuff blends together. So we want to remember that we're all connected in a way, and we can all work together, because when we work together, we're stronger, okay? And that means a little bit of everything. When you're doing teamwork, teamwork is a really great thing. So what we're going to do, I want you to take some paper, take a moment, cut some strips. Okay, cut some strips out. I've got some boring white ones. Well, you guys are cutting. I'm going to color some of these in really quickly, just really quickly. Maybe we'll use some colors that aren't just vibrant. We'll use some contrast. Let's use some blue. So I'm just going to color in a couple little strips. You go ahead and cut, 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 cut. I only suggest try to keep your pieces all the same width. So this, okay, how wide that strip is. If you use the same piece of paper, it's easy, okay? If you need some help, that's okay. If it's a little crooked, that's okay too, okay? So I'm just quickly. Now, this is where having wrapping paper or construction paper or newspaper can be a lot of fun, because you don't necessarily need to create any fun patterns. You don't need to create any color. The paper is already colored and exciting to look at, and you just get to make it stronger by weaving it together. Okay, so just going to show you there. Okay, now I'm using just normal regular printer paper. Okay, and remember my rooster, remember my coloring page. Okay, we're going to scramble this picture. We're going to scramble it. Now, I always like to do this project and tell people, imagine this rooster was on your TV screen or on your computer screen and something went glitchy, okay? So we're going to do some glitch art, and we're going to take a coloring page, and this is just an example. So if you're like, oh my goodness, I don't have a coloring page and I'm not ready for this, that's okay. I just want you to practice weaving. I'm just trying to show you some fun ways that you can play around with the idea of weaving because it's so simple and you can do it many different ways, okay? So I'm gonna cut my poor little rooster into some strips. You might call them chicken strips. You know what I mean? I hope that doesn't offend anybody out there. It's just a little funny, you know? So we're gonna make some chicken strips. Someone out there is going, wah, wah, wah. There's at least one dad out there on the internet high-fiving somebody because that was a great dad joke. Great dad joke. So I'm just making some chicken strips over here. And if you're like, oh no, but it's such a nice picture, that's okay. Sometimes art is made to be destroyed. So don't feel bad if you create something and you want to just wreck it to try and create something new. Because sometimes that's how you make some pretty cool stuff that no one would ever imagine. Okay, so I got me some chicken strips. Okay, all right. So I'm going to clear a little bit of a space here on the table. Once I get this area cleared, I'm going to give you guys a wild suggestion. And I use the term wild for a reason. Because I do all sorts of art, but my favorite type of art is inspired by nature. I like to spend a lot of time in nature. I like to let nature inspire my drawings and my artwork, like that rooster you saw. But I also like to work with Mother Nature and the things that Mother Nature provides. When I was a kid, my favorite things, I lived on Lake Erie. My favorite things to do was paint rocks. So I'd go and collect nice rocks at the beach, whether rocks looked like something or if it was just a perfect flat rock I could paint something on, and I'd go to the beach. And on rainy days, I had all these great rocks I could collect. I had already collected, and I could paint them. But there was something else that the lake provided, and it was clay. And now clay, you can use clay to make pottery of all kinds of things, but you need a kiln. And a kiln is a very hot, very special oven. It gets as hot as a volcano inside of it to turn the mushy clay into rock or stone. Now, it's not a very safe thing for kids to do. So I would just take the clay out of the lake and I would mold it, and I would make all sorts of little creatures and creations and pots and bowls and birds' nests and eggs, whatever you could imagine, and let them dry. And then I could paint them, but they were very fragile because they were never fired in a kiln. So those are ways that you can use Mother Nature to have some fun. But remember I mentioned that weaving, you can use natural materials to weave your creations. So one of the things on my walk here, there were some cattails. Now, cattails, you can use cattails for all sorts of things. I also found some long blades of grass, okay? And I'm just going to use these in my glitch art, just to show you that you can do anything with these flat, long pieces, okay? So I'm going to use some paper, all right? I'm going to use a little bit of this reed. I'm going to use my rooster drawing that I had. And we're going to just weave things together so you have whatever you want to use. Whether you've got some natural materials, you've got some wrapping paper, I hope you're still cutting. If you don't have enough strips, you'll need a lot of strips, okay? And if you run out, don't worry about it. This is just practice, okay? So I'm going to break up my area into sections. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my rooster. I'm going to just set it out as if I hadn't cut it up. Okay. So we'll see the rooster together one more time. It's kind of like a really fun puzzle. Or if you don't like puzzles, it's not very fun at all. Depends on what you think. Okay. It doesn't take very long. Okay. So now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to adjust things a little bit. There. Okay. So I'm going to turn this so it's right side up to you. People always ask me, Lacey, how do you do art upside down and sideways? And I say, it doesn't really matter to me. It's more about what you can see and what you understand. Okay. So I'm just putting my chicken strips back together so that we see my chicken again. My rooster friend. There's my rooster friend. Okay. So that's my rooster. So remember, with the weaving, we're doing a glitch project. So if you're doing a glitch project, you could imagine that maybe some of these pieces have been scrambled. So let's scramble my rooster, okay? We're not making scrambled eggs today. We're going to do some scrambled rooster. So I'm going to take this boring. It's just got the feet. I'm going to move that one up here. Then I'm going to take this one out of the middle, and I'm going to put it on top. But there's a gap there. So I'm going to move another strip into the gap. Okay. So we know that there's a rooster there, but it's not quite a rooster anymore. And I'm going to leave this tail section together because I think it looks a little fun. Okay. So I'm going to use this colored blue strip to show us the first step. Okay. What I want to do is attach it up here, but we have to do the over, under, over, under, over, under. So I'm going to take this first and I'm going to put it under the first piece. Okay. So you can't see the blue anymore. Then I'm going to make sure it stays over top of the second piece. Okay. Then I'm going to lift this up and make sure it comes in front. So we've got the under, over, under. We've got another one that's over. I'm going to take this last one out, put it over top. Okay, so now we have our first piece completely woven, okay? But this isn't going to stay this way. This is why I said we should probably use a little bit of tape, okay, or a little bit of glue. I've got some two-sided tape here because that makes things a little bit easier, especially for weaving. But a tape loop works just fine. So I'm going to take a little piece of that tape. I'm going to lift up that first section, and I'm just going to stick that down and then reattach my blue piece of paper. Okay, I'm going to take another little strip. Okay, and notice I'm only doing the pieces that are on top right now. Okay, because once they're in place, we can adjust things. I'm going to come along here, I'm going to put it here, stick another under there, there. Okay. Now, any of the pieces that were slipped under the blue aren't attached yet, okay? So I'm going to do that, but I'm going to do it all at once. I'm going to just lift this up, okay? I'm going to fold it back. And now look, these are blank. So I can take my two-sided tape or my tape loops, whatever you're using. There. There, okay. And then I'm going to just flip that back over. And I'm just going to adjust all of the strips of paper so they don't overlap one another before I stick them down. Okay, so that one's stuck down now. That one's stuck down now. And the last piece, I'm just going to adjust a little bit No overlapping. Okay, so now we've got this whole section is connected. That's great. Moving on to our next piece, we aren't going to need to do so much attaching, okay? But remember, we have to go over, under, the opposite of what we did here. So I'm going to use another boring, a different blue piece of paper. So this time I'm going to lift that piece. I'm going to nestle that new strip of paper up close as I can to that other piece of paper. Okay, now we have to stay on top of this one. I'm going to fold this piece of paper back. I'm going to lift this strip up and I'm going to let it fall. Okay, and I apologize, my arm was in the way, but this next time you'll be able to see it a little better. I'm going to lift this back. I'm going to lift this up. Okay, there's lots of crisscrossing. There. It came unstuck. There. Okay. So now we have 2 weaves. Now we're going to do this over and over and over and over and over again. So remember, we're pixelating things. And you might not think that this looks very jumbled yet, but once we actually add all of these cool little strips of paper, and I'm just going to show you, I've got these fun, makes coloring really quick. I'm all about the highlighters, all those neon colors lately. It's lots of fun. Okay, so I'm just coloring it in to make it extra glitchy. Maybe you can use your favorite colors. Maybe you can use some colors that you don't like at all and say that it's part of the glitch. Okay, so this time I'm going to go under. Okay, and we're going to follow the same pattern we did with the first strip. So under first. And lift up this, underneath again, underneath again. Okay, and then the same thing, I'm just going to use both my hands to just push them up nice and close to my other weave piece of paper, because the closer you get them to each other, the stronger this is. Now, did you notice I didn't use any tape for these 2 pieces? Okay, we do need to use a little bit of tape or glue. Okay, to attach the end. And there's 2 ends on each side, but we'll wait to trim this end. So we've got lots of extras here. So I'm just going to pull this up. I'm going to stick it under like this, and I'm going to tape it down. Okay, so how's it going over there? Is it working? Are you having fun? Are you frustrated? I'm going to show you a second way that you can do weaving. Sometimes when I'm teaching really young kids, they call this the dolphin weave or the rabbit weave, because it's just fun to imagine that the piece of paper that I'm working with is a creature and not just a boring piece of paper. And it's actually going in and out and in and out and in and out. So it's a dolphin diving in and out of the water. So I'm going to take my dolphin. I'm going to dive it into the water. So I'm going under the first strip. I'm going to jump out over top of the water again. I'm going to dive back under the water. I'm going to jump out again. I'm going to dive under the water. And I'm going to dive out again. Okay, and then you just nestle it up. And that's what weaving is. It's just over and under, over and under, over and under, many, many, many times. So I'm just going to do this really quickly to show you guys. But notice how these squares that I'm weaving in, these extra pieces of paper that don't have the rooster on it, some are covering the rooster and others, others are framing the rooster. So we can see the little square of the rooster here, but the rooster's been covered up here, or the rooster's been covered up here. The face is completely covered. Okay, that's good. Now I'm just going to go all the way down with another colored strip. And I really like to work with scribbles sometimes. Sometimes when I do this project with kids, what I suggest is we draw a really fun picture on one piece of paper, and then we scribble whatever we want on the other piece of paper. And then we weave the two pieces of paper together. It makes it look extra scrambled. Okay, so I'm just going to do this. Okay. Go, nestle, nestle, nestle. And you always want to keep pushing them down to make sure that there's no gaps and there's no spaces, okay? I'm going to use a blank and boring piece for the next one because we haven't used a boring piece of paper yet aside from the background of our rooster. There we go. This is when newsprint is really fun to work with because then all of a sudden your picture's getting scrambled up with all kinds of words. You can get some headlines or magazines if you've got some cool magazines. If you really wanted to take this craft to a next level, you know what you could do? You could take a cardboard box and you could make it look like a TV or computer screen. And then you could put these in here and you could come up with stories on what the news story was and what's happening. Why is the TV scrambled? And you could challenge each other to come up with weird and wacky ideas of what's happening. Is the radio station on fire? Is there aliens? Is the new person working at the TV station? They don't know what they're doing. Maybe there's been a hack. I don't know. You just imagine all sorts of things. Okay. All right. So I got a little bit left here. I'm going to weave in. I'm going to show you guys, just to show you, just for some fun. You can weave through some of this stuff. And this is a very traditional craft. So if you want to get really creative at home, you could use some things in your backyard. If you get good at weaving with flexible things like paper and brass, you can start working with things that are less flexible, like branches. I don't know if you've ever been to a big garden and they have really beautiful like braided trees or braided arbors. Here, see, look how fun that is. Very simple, very fun. Okay, the only challenge with working with this brass stuff is that it doesn't actually, it's hard to glue it. A hot glue gun would work a little bit better, but you definitely want to have some help with some family or friends there. I've got one last strip here, so I'm just going to finish it off. There we go. Okay, and just so that we know that it's completely finished, maybe we can use it for something. We're going to just seal off those little ends. Okay, that's why I used a piece of paper for the very end there. Okay, and this time, like I said, if you don't have two-sided tape, you can just take that little piece and you can fold it over the edge, just like we did when we did that accordion fold with that braided paper. Ugh, my tape is sticking. Okay, so I'm just taping them down. And I mostly just want to tape them down so I can hold this up a little bit and show you guys. There, look at that. Look at that. Okay. Do you see the rooster? Do you see the rooster? The rooster's kind of gone. But see all these extra pieces here? Okay, this is what we would want to trim. To finish things off, we would just trim everything. Make some confetti while we're at it. I'm just doing it really roughly right now. If you do this on a table, a little bit easier. And look, I'm going to just trim right through. Oops. Those reeds there. Okay, so look. Now all of a sudden I've got a placemat. I've got a scrambled rooster. What other things could you do? Now the opposite, okay, it's a little bit harder to do. It's a little bit more challenging, but what you can do, and this is the last thing I'll leave you with before I invite Annie back, weave together a bunch of boring blank paper, okay? Nothing on it, just very boring blank paper. And you're probably thinking, but that'll just make a blank, boring piece of weaved paper. And you're right. But you know what you can do? You can take that boring weaved piece of paper. So that's kind of a good example. Mine's a little bit more exciting than boring white paper, but I can draw something on here and then take these weaved pieces apart. Okay, so look, I can take them apart. And now all of a sudden, you have a puzzle that you can put together or challenge your friends and family to put together. And you could do that with anything, okay? A little bit of fun. Now, once you've got these big pieces, I'd like to challenge you guys to think about what else you can do. What's something you do with a flat piece of paper that you could do with a woven piece of paper? I'm thinking like party hats. I'm thinking you can wrap them around containers as decoration, right? I said placemats, book covers. You can do a lot of things, okay? So thank you so much for creating with me. I hope you learned something new about weaving. I would absolutely love to see any of your creations. So if you feel comfortable sharing, feel free to find us on Instagram or Facebook, LVW Creative Barracks. Otherwise, thank you so much. And please welcome Annie back.
Here I am.
Hi.
Thank you so much, Miss Lacey. I've just been weaving away this whole hour, practicing my skills.
Oh, and what kind of paper did you work with?
I worked with an LCBO magazine.
Oh, perfect.
I have a leftover magazine and some pieces that I didn't need, so I was able to use that.
Great paper too. How fun.
And I decided, and you said we could make placemats, but I was thinking I have this old tarp and I haven't known what to do with it. And I think I'm going to use the tarp and make a placemat for my dog Loopy.
Oh my gosh, what a great idea.
So I'll be sure to share that photo on your Facebook and your Instagram.
Oh, that would be so nice. Well, thank you so much for giving me the chance to create with everyone. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much for being a part of it. We'll see you again soon, Lacey. Take care.
Take care.
Wow, that was a lot of fun. My inner child really does come out during craft time. So thank you again to Lacey and LVW Creative Barracks. I would encourage you to follow them on Facebook and on Instagram. They have all sorts of really cool programming over the summer and into the fall for all of our creative types in Niagara. Join us this Sunday. We have Saint Stone, a quartet of queer, trans, and gender non-conforming artists from Niagara. They have a punk grunge indie sound that is unique, forward-driving, and lovingly described as, I love this, catchy and depressing. My favorite. Well, I think that's it for me today. Thank you very much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you this Sunday, or next Thursday, actually. We'll have our friends from the Niagara Conservatory of Music joining us. Until then, thank you very much, and take care of each other.